Hey everybody, welcome into another episode of the Outsider Sports Baseball Podcast. I'm Ben Mandel, joined by John Pauline. No Corey Jason this week, but he'll be back next week, guys. Don't worry. We do have plenty to unpack, though, still. I know we did talk a lot of playoff picture last week, but first, let's get into the news here, because there were some things going on this past week. Probably the most exciting thing, especially for the two Yankee fans that are not on here with us this week, Jason Dominguez finally debuts. And John, I know, being in the Wilkes-Barre Scranton area, you've heard about him playing up in Scranton with the Rail Riders. I know here we saw him playing in Somerset in Double-A for a while, but Jason Dominguez gets called up. Not only does he spark this team, he hits a couple of home runs and fuels the Yankees to a sweep in Houston, a series that I picked as my series highlight last week, and the Yankee fans wanted no part of it because they thought they were just going to get rolled. And look, the Yankees come out. Jason Dominguez ends up having a great weekend. It's a pair of home runs, and the Yankees all of a sudden have some life. Bobby Miller of the Dodgers throws 7 innings pitched for the first time in his career. The young guy whose stuff has already been compared to those of Garrett Cole and Jacob deGrom. He is able to beat the Braves as the Dodgers were able to steal one from them. Shohei Ohtani, speaking of stealing, stole his 20th base on Sunday for a 40 home run, 20 stolen bag season. He is now the 8th player with multiple of those seasons. Now, into news as well, the Backstreet Boys. This is a group that they really took the country by storm 20 years ago. Now, the Savannah Bananas, this is a new style of baseball. You may have heard of it as banana ball down in Georgia that is taking the world by storm now. Well, these two things clashed this weekend as Brian Luttrell of the Backstreet Boys was called, asked, and then went and showed up and played for the Savannah Bananas this past weekend. I mean, talk about a draw. You don't really have to push people to watch baseball, especially this time of year. People are looking for things to do. But the Savannah Bananas and Banana Ball, it's been blowing up. John, I do want to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think of Banana Ball and them doing things like this, bringing in guys from the Backstreet Boys to come play?
I mean, honestly, the only comparable thing you want to compare it to, like they're like the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. That's probably the best comparison. And I mean, I think they started off just playing down in Georgia, but I think now they're starting to travel more, which is going to be really, really good for the sport of baseball because I don't think a lot of young kids are going out and playing baseball like little league and stuff nowadays. So this is it's a fun thing to watch. They are actually playing real baseball, but they do a lot of funny stuff. Like they'll do dances. I think I saw
Mm-hmm.
someone get up on stilts the one time and try to hit a ball. But they do, doing all the funny stuff, but they're still playing real baseball. And I think it's a fantastic way to get to grow the sport, get more fans, especially the younger generations now. And I mean that was the problem that MLB was going after, why they tried to wanted to shorten the games and stuff because younger kids aren't watching the games anymore. So I think this is a fantastic way to grow the sport. I think it's good for baseball, and it's also like now there's something to do now. I if they ever come around my area, like I want to go see them because you see their clips on Facebook and everything, and they just look this so fun to watch.
I always say to my friends at my job that aren't baseball fans, if you want to get into baseball, watch the Savannah Bananas. It is baseball. There are a lot of quirky rules that I don't even understand fully to myself. I believe they play each inning is scored, you win an inning, and that's how it goes
I
towards your
think there's some
score.
weird rules.
It's
There's also a thing if a fan catches a foul ball or a home run, it's an out or something.
Yeah, and there's a
It makes it
lot of
fun
really,
though. It gets
but
the
and
fans
it keeps
involved.
it keeps the fans involved. You have center fielders, like you get like extra style points for a trick play or a trick catch. So you have guys doing backflips while catching fly balls. It's awesome. it's a very, very fun way to grow baseball and to get people who aren't into the game as it traditionally is into it. Because once you get into it that way, then you start learning the regular nuances of it, and you can transition into baseball. These are guys who are, I mean, it's the equivalent of playing like semi-pro. These guys are going here, they're playing, and they're making it to the major leagues. You have
It's some
Jeremy
former
Guthrie, who,
major leagues
yeah,
coming
you have
down.
Jeremy Guthrie, who played 13 seasons in the big leagues playing for the Savannah Bananas. So, there are a lot of ties to the major leagues here, and really just a lot of fun things going on there. Now, last thing in the news I do want to touch on, we have another player who reached the 40 home run mark. While Matt Olson has been going through his drought, he did finally snap it and reach 44 on Sunday. Pete Alonso, he reached 41 with 2 home runs on Sunday, hitting the 40 home run mark once again in his career. The Polar Bear seems to be bouncing back from a lot of that criticism. We talked about it last week about how the Mets were looking to trade him. Apparently, a lot of players this past week went into Steve Cohen's office and vouched for them to sign Alonso to an extension. It sounds like the team, the players, the locker room, everybody wants to keep Alonso in a New York Mets jersey.
I didn't think he was going to hit 40 home runs this year because after he got hurt, he came back and he just did not look the same, and
He
he
went
just was
cold.
not hit. I felt like almost forever. It felt like almost like the second half of the season, he was just cold up until now,
Pretty
coming back
much
from his
from
injury.
the beginning of July through August. I think
Yeah,
he was slowing down, but the past week and a half he's picked it back up again. He's finally getting the home runs back, and who knows, he might be able to push for the league lead if he can get hot and stay
I mean
hot.
Olson's cooled off a little bit, so I mean if he's getting hot right now, I mean I think there's enough time.
Well, he's only 3 back. He
Yeah, there's enough
definitely can
time. There's more,
hit.
way more than enough time, and if Olson, it depends how Olson. It depends if Olson starts hitting too, but
Well,
even
that's
then, I think there's
Olson.
enough
We've
time.
seen Mets fans have seen Olson get hot too, so we don't want to
Yeah,
see that. I know the Mets aren't really in a playoff race anymore, so at this point, it's Alonso's home run chase that we are interested in
that's
seeing.
your main focus right now.
Exactly,
No,
it's the
no, you're out of the
Alonso home run
playoffs, and you're
chase.
just looking for Alonso trying to get the most home runs in the NL.
Exactly. Look, if he can beat Matt Olson, I don't even care if he gets the most. Just beat Matt Olson. So let's go into studs and duds now. For me, my stud, it's going to be Bobby Miller. He did throw 2 starts this week, and his first one was very lackluster, but his second one was outstanding, as we mentioned earlier, picking up the win against the Braves with a career high 7 innings pitched. Bobby Miller's stuff is that good, and really every single time he has taken the mound, is he going to stay in the rotation? Well, it looks like he's finally cemented himself over the last month. He did kind of fall off a little bit in July. He rebounded in August. Bobby Miller, he has been very, very good for this Dodgers team, who's had a pitching staff that we expected them to be very good, but they've dealt with a lot of injuries. They've had a lot of guys go in and out. Walker Bueller still isn't back. So Bobby Miller, he's really been the guy to step up for them, and he's been fantastic. Remember the name. He's going to be one of those guys for the Dodgers that pitches there for a long time. My dud, it's Aaron Nola. 4 2/3 innings pitched, took the loss, 8 hits, 7 runs, 3 walks, only 5 strikeouts. And I've said this really since the end of May, right around Memorial Day. Just looks like Aaron Nola threw too many innings last year. He's burned out.
I think that's the thing. I think a lot. I think that it's. I don't think the pitch clock helps. I don't. I think that throws off his pace of pitch
Do
there.
you know if they fixed the pitch clock at Citizens Bank Park yet?
I don't know because like the last time I saw, they said they weren't gonna fix it, and then I don't know they
Mm-hmm.
were, but
There were
I
no
am
immediate
not
plans to fix it.
sure. MLB didn't have. They didn't really. It wasn't really too high up on their to do list. But I mean, I would think so that they fix it. I mean, I haven't heard anything since, so I'm assuming they fixed it. I'll have to double check on that.
Yeah, you got to
But
ask the players. Does it still feel
yeah,
fast?
I think Nola. I think they're tired. I think even Wheeler. I think that's the Phillies' problem. I think they're throwing too many pitches, too many innings, and they just get really tired. And I don't think they have that. It seems like they don't have that depth there to fill in to give them more of a rest. But going to my stud is another Phillies player is Trey Turner, who's been absolutely just on fire almost since the Phillies fans gave him that standing ovation, is actually putting up like MVP numbers right now. Because I think last week he had 12 hits, 6 home runs, 15 RBIs, 1 walk, 2 stolen bases, batting 414, and he actually had a 5 game home run streak with 2 home runs in one game, and that finally ended last night. But I think he still had 2 hits last night and an RBI. But he's just on fire right now. And if he would have did this the whole year, you'd probably say he'd be in talks for MVP. But I guess better late than never for the Phillies right now because they really need him going into the playoff run here. And my dud is a team that's doing really well lately. Seattle Mariner George Kirby. He did absolutely terrible. He went 3 innings. He got pulled after 3 innings. He threw 73 pitches in 3 innings. Gave up 6 hit, 3 earned runs, 3 strikeouts. Got the loss. But like that's just terrible. 73 pitches, 3 innings.
That's just that is you do not have the put away stuff. Now, John, speaking of put away stuff, in our fantasy baseball league, you can finally say that you have slayed the giant.
Yeah, I
You
finally
are one
you
of you are
finally
one of
got it.
3 people now all season to beat me. I am now 18-3. Thank you for that,
I
John.
think I'm 10-11, and I have the third most points in the league, but I'm battling for sixth place with Corey. So it's
Hey,
coming down here. Corey beats me,
bragging
I'm out.
rights. This is it.
Corey beats me, I'm out of the playoffs. I win, I'm in the playoffs. So this is
Uh,
important week.
last week of the regular season for our fantasy baseball league. And John, you're fighting. I've got that first round bye locked up, but you came away with a huge win last week.
I need and Trey
Yeah.
Turner was a big part of that
Yes,
too
he
for me because I
was.
have him in fantasy. So he's been a big part of my late success here.
Yeah, he definitely was a big part of that this past week. Now, another team that's been rising, the Seattle Mariners, a team that's been falling, the Texas Rangers. John, I do want to ask you because these are 2 teams that you had in your power rankings. The Mariners have been continuing to climb lately. They've been streaking. While the Rangers, they fell all the way to 9th in your power rankings. I want to see what can the Rangers do to stop this slide, but also the Mariners, how high can they keep climbing for you?
Let's start with the Mariners first, because I think that's an easier question to answer. I mean, honestly, well, I think obviously the Braves and the Orioles have the Mariners beat, and I think they're going to be a solid 1-2 for the rest of the season. And I want to say Dodgers have the 3 spot locked up. So I mean, I think the Mariners ceiling, I want to say for me, is probably right at 4. I don't think going to go much further than 4 unless the Dodgers really fall off. But I think 4 is probably my ceiling for them. Maybe they sneak in the 3, but they're not going. I think the Orioles and Braves just are too good this season. They're playing too good right now, and like I feel like they just keep winning. Even when they lose, it feels like they keep winning. Now the Rangers, I mean, we had them last podcast where I was saying that they were going to win the division. I mean, I'm still going to stand by it. There's still a lot of baseball left, but I mean, they got to start winning games. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what's going on. It seems like the pitching's doing bad. Like they just can't hit. I think it's really their bullpen is just seems to be losing them these games. Because I think Scherzer pitched a good game the other day, but the bullpen just completely blew it for him. So I mean, they just got to the Rangers got to take a step back. They got to look at what they were doing earlier in the season and what was working for them, and just start doing that again. Because like somewhere along the way, something got messed up there, and they keep falling and falling and falling. And if they keep losing, eventually it's just they're not going to be a top 10 team anymore.
Well, and this isn't like the National League playoffs last year where the Mets were able to have that fall off. And I know they still won 101 games or
Yeah.
whatever it was, but you're not going to be able to stumble into the playoffs in the American League this year.
No.
So for Texas with Bruce Bochy, this is a 3-time World Series winning manager. He needs to figure this out. This is on Bruce Bochy right now. I understand the bullpen, the pitchers, the pitching may not be there. I understand you were getting some overachievement from your pitchers early on in the season. It doesn't matter. Bruce Bochy needs to be able to keep the ship afloat. This is why you brought him in here, so he can get you through moments like these. This is when you lean on your manager. And I don't know. I think Texas is on the decline. I think they were overachieving to start the year, and we may have bought into that a little bit too much because I just don't see Texas fixing this. I don't think they're better than the other teams in the American League right now.
I think they could fix it enough where possibly maybe they don't win a division, but possibly a wild card berth there. But I mean, I don't know if they go deep at all in the playoffs if they can't figure it out.
Well, exactly, and that's very, very, very true, John. Because even if you get in, do you see this team beating any of those playoff teams in a 3-game series? Because right now, I think it would be either
Not right now.
Seattle, they're looking at Seattle, or they're looking at, I mean, maybe Minnesota. If
Minnesota's
you
been
luck
up and
into
down all
if you
year.
luck into Minnesota in the first round by squeaking into the last wild card, kind of like what the Phillies did with St. Louis last
Yeah,
year, because you could argue you wouldn't want to play San Diego or the Mets in that first round. You'd rather play St. Louis.
yeah. And then you hopefully get hot then, and then you just go on the run like the Phillies did. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Rangers, I mean, they just got to go back to what they were doing earlier in the season. You don't know what changed.
It's and I really do believe a lot of it is guys overachieving. You can't just say that. That's just a cop out answer. But
Mm.
still, I think that Texas they did overachieve quite a bit, and hey, their manager has to figure it out. That is their veteran. That is who needs to do this. You don't have a guy like Jacob DeGrom there. Yeah, you traded for Max Scherzer, but hey, he's got to pitch too. The bullpen has to do their part. And Bruce Bochy has to be able to move this team along in the right direction. Now, it's absolute madness, though, on the other side of the bracket. We look at the National League, and we currently have 4 teams tied for the last wild card spot. You want to talk about an absolute wild card frenzy? That's what's going on in the National League. As of right now, you currently see the Phillies and Cubs holding the top 2 wild card spots. The Cubs sit 3 games back of Milwaukee for the lead in the Central, so figure those 2 teams they have the top 2. But then you have 4 teams tied in Arizona, Miami, San Francisco, and Cincinnati for the last wild card. 4 teams, 1 playoff spot. First, John, tell me who you think's going to get it. Tell me who you think deserves it. And tell me exactly what each team needs to do in order to secure that final wild card spot because there's 4 teams vying for it.
I, I mean, it's so hard to like pick who's gonna win this because I feel like a lot of these teams are kind of like on the same, like they're very even with like how they're playing, kind of. I mean, the Giants, I feel like I don't feel I just feel like it's kind of amazes me that they're there because I just feel like you didn't really hear about them too much all year, and then they're just kind of there.
Well, and this is the team that missed out on the free agents, right? They
Yeah,
lost out, they missed out on Judge, they missed out on Correa, right? They didn't have a shortstop. 2 years ago they had the playoff run. Last year they were a disappointment. This year they're right back in it.
yeah, and it's like I don't. Did they really get anyone? Like, do they really? I mean, it's
Michael
but like,
Conforto.
and then you look at the Diamondbacks, and it's like, I, no one expected them to be this good this year and stuff, and they're definitely, I think, overachieving because I thought Diamondbacks were at least maybe a year or two out from being like anywhere near this position. Then you look at the Marlins, and I think the Marlins kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, I don't think anyone really expected them to be good at all, or even in the coming years being good. But I mean, they did have the pitching. They do
Well,
have really
and
good pitching.
that's what's so weird about the Marlins, right? Because it felt like the Marlins had the pitching, then they go trade away a guy like Pablo Lopez to go get Arias, and it feels like, okay, you had the pitching, now you got rid of one of your better ones for a bat. Okay, now and then they start the season hitting. Now they're not hitting anymore.
Yeah, it's up and down, and then you look at who else is it? You look at the Reds,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought the Reds like next year. I thought the Reds next year were gonna make a run and be really really good, but they brought all their guys up about a year early with De La Cruz, and you got Hunter Green's pitching and Ladobo. I think he's hurt now though.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you want to say it's anyone's thing, but if you want to pick one, I mean, I almost want. I think I had the I think I had the Reds going last week, but it's like it's just so close. And I almost want to say the Diamondbacks win this whole, make it in and win this, because I just think they have
They have
better
a
overall
one.
players.
They have that number one in Zach Gallen who can go
Yeah,
toe to toe with anyone. They have Corbin Carroll. They have Christian Walker. They have Ketel Marte. Like they've got
yeah.
talent. They have talent. I agree. I think the Diamondbacks are a year away. I think the Giants are a sneaky team. Although at the end of the day, John, how scared of you? How scared of Gabe Kapler are you?
Not
Like
very, but he just seems to win though. Like he just seems to
no,
win.
he
He's
lucked into a winning season once with the Giants. He's got this season in the National League where there's a lot of parity. So I don't think Gabe Kapler is that good of a manager. I think he's a little too heavy into the analytics. I don't like having a right-handed and a left-handed lineup. I don't like having those platoons because then he'll go ahead and swap them out in the third inning, and all of a sudden half your lineup's now washed in the third inning of the game. It's terrible managing, in my opinion.
but
You have
that's
no leverage in late situations in a game. But this isn't about bashing Gabe Kapler. I think that ultimately, the Giants, yeah, I've been up and down on them this year. I think I've had them in my top 10 a few times, but I just think that, the Reds, Diamondbacks, those are the two best teams of those ones vying for it. I originally was high on the Marlins early on. I fell off that train very quickly. I just don't love the bats. I don't think they have enough power or consistency. I liked the Burger trade at the deadline, but not necessarily the best move for them. Now, John, I do want to flip back in here because
Mhm.
there is one other team that I kind of touched on with the wild card frenzy, but I don't want to just leave them, and it's the Milwaukee Brewers because this team you had them ranked sixth in your power rankings, and this is a team that has surged. We all thought once Ellie De La Cruz came up that the Reds were going to run away with this division, and they kind of held it for a little while, but Milwaukee took it back. They're now holding it. They're holding off the Cubs, and a team that we thought could compete with the Cardinals for the division. Now, with the Cardinals out of it, do you feel like this is their division to lose?
It almost certainly is their division to lose, and I mean it's very closely because it almost seems like the Cubs might just come back and take it from them because I feel like the Brewers, for how good they're doing now, they haven't been very consistent all year. It's like a little up, down, up, down, up, down, and it
Mm-hmm.
hasn't seen they were able to have that like just sustained success to just keep getting the steady games, keep getting games ahead, and just kind of plateau out with just the winning and losing there and keep going. And the Cubs just seem like they're right there. They're right on right on their coattails, just getting closer and closer and closer. And it's like I think the Cubs have a higher ceiling than the Brewers right now. Because I don't know if you're going to see much more of the Brewers than you have right now, but right now the Brewers are playing probably, I would say, almost to their ceiling.
So, what about the Brewers when they're playing at their ceiling makes them so dangerous? I know the pitching, but like the Brewers, this is a team that's all of a sudden they're winning games. John, your Phillies just saw them. What makes the Brewers dangerous?
They can hit when they need. They can hit when they need to, and then it's just the pitching. And pitching is might be worth more than hitting sometimes because if you have good pitching, you can't get hits. But I think it's maybe dangerous. I feel like they have a lot of I'm gonna say like they have the veterans and Corbin Burns and stuff there, and I think that helps out. And then do they still? I'm trying to think 'cause I don't know
They have
everyone on their
Woodruff,
team. Yeah, Woodruff. They have Devin
Yelich is
Williams.
yeah.
Like their
Sam
pitching
Sal
is
Frelick
terrifying.
is the rookie has
Sem,
been good as
yeah.
well.
So I think what's dangerous with the Brewers is like if they can get hitting early on in the game and stuff, their pitching is just it's gonna you're not gonna be able to catch them. Like that's what makes them scary. Is like if they can get runs on the board early on, with how good their pitching can be, it's just like you might not even be able a chance to catch up and win the game if they're hitting.
That's very true. Now we are going to start to wrap this thing up. So let's get into our weekly series highlight. I'm going to start us out with Astros Rangers. We're just talking about the NL or the AL West and how important these games are for the Rangers, who have now fallen behind the Astros as well as the Mariners in the standings. If they want the division, this is where it starts. The Rangers need to bounce back. They need to get rolling. Who better to do it against than the defending champs, the Houston Astros?
My weekly highlight is going to be the Dodgers versus the Marlins. We were kind of talking about this earlier. I mean, the Dodgers, I think, are pretty locked in to win the NL West by now. I don't think they're really in danger of losing it, but the Marlins are right there in the wild card race, and this is a very important series for them because I mean, if they can win this series or something, that can put them right into a definitive third in the wild card spot. So this is going to be should be a good matchup.
Yeah, all games are important as we are in the final month of the season. Labor Day weekend in the books. Baseball is now into its final stretch. Tons of exciting things going on. So definitely keep it locked in to the Outsider Sports Baseball podcast. Football's back up and going as well with that kicking off Thursday night. Make sure you check out the Outsider Sports Football podcast. Hockey starting back up again soon as well. Is it October yet? Not yet, but we're getting there. Make sure you check out the Outsider Sports Hockey podcast as well. Follow us on X at Outsider Sports 3. Check us out on TikTok and YouTube by searching Outsider Sports. Make sure you guys have a great day and keep listening to the Outsider Sports Baseball podcast.